slaughter of rebels, the brothers' heroes. Empires wax and wane. States cleave asunder and coalesce. When the rule of Chu weakened, 7 contending principalities sprang up, warring one with another till they settled down as Tsin, and when its destiny had been fulfilled arose Chu and Han to contend for the mastery. And Han was the victor. The rise of the fortunes of Han began with the slaughter of the White Serpent. In a short time the whole empire was theirs, and their magnificent heritage was handed down in successive generations till the days of Guangwu, whose name stands in the middle of the long line of Han. This was in the 1st century of the Western era, and the dynasty had then already passed its zenith. A century later came to the throne the Emperor Hsin, doomed to see the beginning of the division into 3 parts, known to history as the 3 kingdoms. The descent into misrule hastened in the reigns of the 2 emperors Huan and Ling, who sat in the dragon seat about the middle of the 2nd century. The former of these 2 paid no heed to the good men of his court, but gave his confidence to the palace eunuchs. He lived and died, leaving the scepter to Ling, whose trusted advisors were the General Tu Wu and the Grand Tutor Chern Fan. These 2, disgusted with the abuses resulting from the meddling of the eunuchs in affairs of state, plotted their destruction. But the chief eunuch Tsao Chi was not to be disposed of easily. The plot leaked out and the 2 honest men fell, leaving the eunuchs stronger than before. It fell upon the day of full moon of the 4th month, 2nd year of the period Qin Ning, that the emperor went in state to the Wear-and-Tear Hall. As he drew near the throne, a rushing whirlwind arose in the corner of the hall, and, lo! From the roof beams floated down a monstrous black serpent that coiled itself up on the very seat of majesty. The emperor fell in a swoon. Those nearest him hastily raised and bore him to his palace, while the courtiers scattered and fled. The serpent disappeared, but there followed a terrific tempest, thunder, hail, and torrents of rain, lasting till midnight and working havoc on all sides. 2 years later the earth quaked in Luoyang, while along the coast a huge tidal wave rushed in which, in its recoil, swept away all the dwellers by the sea. Another evil omen was recorded 10 years later, when the rain title was changed. Certain hens suddenly developed male characteristics, a miracle which could only refer to the effeminate eunuchs meddling in affairs of state. At the new moon of the 6th month, a long wreath of black vapor wound its way into the audience chamber, while in the following month a rainbow was seen in the jade chamber. Away from the capital, a mountain fell in, leaving a mighty rift in its flank. Such were some of various omens. The emperor, greatly moved by these signs of the displeasure of heaven, issued an edict asking his ministers for an explanation of the calamities and marvels. A certain Tsi Young replied bluntly that showers of insects and changes of foul sexes were brought about by feminine interference in state affairs. The emperor read this memorial with deep sighs, and the chief eunuch Tsao Chi, from his place behind the throne, anxiously noted these signs of grief. An opportunity offering, he read the document and told his fellows its purport. Before long a charge was trumped up against the author, who was driven from court and forced to retire to his country house. With this victory the eunuchs grew bolder. 10 of them, rivals in wickedness and associates in evil deeds, formed a powerful party known as the 10. One of them, Chang Jiang, won such influence that he became the emperor's most honored and trusted advisor. The emperor even called him daddy. So the government went quickly from bad to worse, till the country was ripe for rebellion and buzzed with brigandage. At this time in Chulu was a certain Chang family, of whom 3 brothers bore the name of Shio, Pao, and Liang respectively. The eldest was an unclassed graduate, who devoted himself to medicine. One day, while culling simples in the woods, he met a venerable old gentleman with very bright eyes and fresh complexion, who walked leaning on a staff. The old man beckoned Shio into a cave, and there gave him 3 volumes of the Book of Heaven. "This book," said he, "is the way of peace. With the aid of these volumes you can convert the world and rescue mankind. But you must be single-minded, or, rest assured, you will greatly suffer." With a humble obeisance, Chang took the book and asked the name of his benefactor. "I am the H-Scene of the southern land of glory," was the reply, as the old gentleman disappeared in thin air. The new possessor of the wonderful book studied it eagerly and strove day and night to reduce its precepts to practice. Before long, he could summon the winds and command the rain, and became known as the mystic of the way of peace. Soon he could test his other powers. With a change of reign title appeared a terrible pestilence which ran throughout the land, whereupon Chang Shio distributed charmed remedies, of which the success gained him the title of the wise and good master. He began to have a following of disciples whom he initiated into the mysteries and sent abroad throughout all the land. They, like their master, could write charms and recite formulae, and their fame increased his following. He began to organize his disciples. He established 36 circuits, the larger with a myriad or more members, the smaller with about half that number. Each circuit had its chief, who took the military title of general. They talked wildly of the death of the blue heavens and the setting up of the yellow. They said a new cycle was beginning and would bring universal good fortune, and they persuaded people to chalk the symbols for the first year of a cycle on the main door of their dwellings. With the growth of the number of his supporters grew also the ambition of the wise and good. He dreamed of empire. One of his partisans, Ma Yuanai, was sent bearing gifts to gain the support of the eunuchs, whereby to have allies within the palace. To his brothers Chang Shio said, "For schemes like ours always the most difficult part is to gain the popular favor, but that is already ours. Such an opportunity must not pass." And they began to prepare. Many yellow flags were made, and a day was chosen to strike the first blow. Then they wrote letters to the chief eunuch, Faring Hsu, and sent them by a follower who, alas, betrayed their trust and discovered the plot. The emperor summoned his trusty general Ho Chin and bade him look to it. Ma Yuanai was at once taken and put to death. Faring Hsu and many others were cast into prison. The plot having thus become known, the Changs were forced at once to take the field. They assumed grandiose titles, Tien Kung or Celestial Duke, Tai Kung or Terrestrial Duke, Jern Kung or Duke of Humanity, and in these names they put forth this manifesto. "The good fortune of the hands is exhausted, and the wise man has appeared. Discern the will of heaven, O ye people, and walk in the way of righteousness, whereby alone ye may attain to peace." Support was not lacking. On every side people bound their heads with a yellow turban and joined the army of the rebel Chang Shio, so that soon his strength was exceeding great, and the official troops melted away at a whisper of his coming. Ho Chin, guardian of the throne, memorialized for general preparations against the rebels, and an edict called upon everyone to fight against them. In the meantime, Lu Qi, Huangfu Sung and Chu Qin marched against them in 3 directions with veteran soldiers. It is now time to turn to Chang Shio. He led his army into Yuchao, the northern of the 8 divisions of the country. The prefect was one Liu Yen, a scion of the imperial house through a certain Lu, Prince Kung of Qingling. Learning of the approach of the rebels, the prefect called in the Hsiou Tsu Qing to consult over the position. Said Tsu, "They are many and we few. You must enlist more men to oppose them." The prefect saw this was so, and he put out notices calling for volunteers to serve against the rebels. One of these notices was posted up in the Chou district, where lived one of whom much will be heard later. This man was no mere bookish scholar, nor found he any pleasure in study, but he was liberal and amiable, albeit a man of few words, hiding all feeling under a calm exterior. He had always cherished a yearning for high emprise, and had cultivated the friendship of men of mark. He was tall of stature. His ears were long, the lobes touching his shoulders, and his hands hung down below his knees. His eyes were very prominent, so that he could see backward past his ears. His complexion was clear as jade, and he had rich red lips. He was a descendant of a prince whose father was the grandson of the Emperor Qing, the occupant of the Dragon Throne a century and a half B.C. His name was Liu Pei, or more commonly Liu Yuan-ter. Many years before, one of his forebears had been Marquis of that very district, but had lost his rank for remissness in ceremonial offerings. However, that branch of the family had remained on in the place, gradually becoming poorer and poorer as the years rolled on. His father Liu Hung had been a scholar and an official, but died young. The widow and orphan were left alone, and Pei as a lad won a reputation for filial piety. At this time the family had sunk deep in poverty, and the son gained his living by the sale of straw sandals and weaving grass mats. The family home was in a village near the district city. Near the house stood a huge mulberry tree, and seen from afar its curved profile resembled the tilt of a wagon. Noting the luxuriance of its foliage, a soothsayer had predicted that one day a man of distinction would come forth from the family. As a child, Yuan-ter and the other village boys played beneath this tree, and he would climb up into it, saying he was emperor and was mounting his chariot. The lad's uncle recognized that he was no ordinary boy, and saw to it that the family did not come to actual want. When Yuan-ter was 15, his mother sent him traveling for his education. For a time he served Chang Yuan and Lu Qi as masters, and he became great friends with Kung Sun San. Yuan-ter was 28 when the outbreak of the rebellion called for soldiers. The sight of the notice saddened him, and he sighed as he read it. Suddenly, a rasping voice behind him cried, "Noble sir, why sigh if you do nothing to help your country?" Turning quickly, he saw standing there a man about his own height, with a bullet head like a leopard's, large eyes, a pointed chin, and a bristling mustache. He spoke in a loud bass voice and looked as irresistible as a runaway horse. At once Yuan-ter saw he was no ordinary man, and asked who he was. "Chang Fei is my name. I am usually called I-ter," replied the stranger. "I live near here, where I have a farm, and I am a wine seller and a butcher as well, and I like to become acquainted with worthy men. Your sighs as you read the notice drew me toward you." Yuan-ter replied, "I am of the imperial family, Liu by name, and my distinguishing name is Pei. And I would destroy these rebels and restore peace to the land, but alas, I am helpless." "I am not without means," said Fei. "Suppose you and I raised some men and tried what we could do." This was happy news for Yuan-ter, and the two betook themselves to the village inn to talk over the project. As they were drinking, a huge, tall fellow appeared pushing a hand-cart along the road. At the threshold he halted and entered the inn to rest a while, and he called for wine. "And be quick," added he, "for I am in haste to get into the town and offer myself for the army." Yuan-ter looked over the newcomer item by item and noted his huge frame, his long beard, his dark brown face, and deep red lips. He had eyes like a phoenix and fine bushy eyebrows like silkworms. His whole appearance was dignified and awe-inspiring. Presently Yuan-ter crossed over, sat down beside him, and asked his name. "I am Kuan Yu," said he. "I used to be known as Shu Chang long as eternity, but now am usually called Yun Chang long as a cloud. I am a native of the east side of the river, but I have been a fugitive on the waters for some 5 years, because I slew a ruffian who, since he was powerful, was a bully. I have come to join the army here." Then Yuan Ter told him his own intentions, and all three went away to Chang Fei's farm, where they could talk over the grand project. Said Fei, "The peach trees in the orchard behind the house are just in full flower. Tomorrow we will institute a sacrifice there, and solemnly declare our intention before heaven and earth. And we three will swear brotherhood and unity of aims and sentiments. Thus will we enter upon our great task." All three being of one mind, next day they prepared the sacrifices, a black ox, a white horse, and wine for libation. Beneath the smoke of the incense burning on the altar they bowed their heads and recited this oath: "We three, Liu Pei, Quan Yu, and Chang Fei, though of different families, swear brotherhood and promise mutual help to one end. We will rescue each other in difficulty, we will aid each other in danger. We swear to serve the state and save the people. We ask not the same day of birth, but we seek to die together. May heaven, the all-ruling, and earth, the all-producing, read our hearts, and if we turn aside from righteousness or forget kindliness, may heaven and man smite us." They rose from their knees. The two others bowed before Yuan Ter as their elder brother, and Chang Fei was to be the youngest of the trio. This solemn ceremony performed, they slew other oxen and made a feast to which they invited the villagers. 300 joined them, and all feasted and drank deep in the peach garden. The next day weapons were mustered, but there were no horses to ride. This was a real grief, but soon they were cheered by the arrival of 2 horse dealers with a drove of horses. "Thus does heaven help us," said Yuan Ter, and the 3 brothers went forth to welcome the merchants. They were from Changshan and went northwards every year to buy horses. They were now on their way home because of the rising. They also came to the farm, where wine was set before them, and presently Yuan Ter told them of the plan to strive for tranquility. The 2 dealers were glad and at once gave them 50 good steeds, and beside, gold and silver and 1,000 cattas of steel fit for the forging of weapons. After the merchants had taken their leave, armorers were summoned to forge weapons. For Yuan Ter they made a double sword. Yun Xiechang fashioned a long-handled, curved blade called Black Dragon, or Cold Beauty, which weighed a full hundredweight, and Chang Fei made himself an 18-foot spear. Each 2 had a helmet and full armor. When these were ready, the troop, now 500 strong, marched to Tzu Qing, who presented them to Liu Yan. When the ceremony of introduction was over, Yuan Ter declared his ancestry, and Yan at once accorded him the favor due to a relation. Before many days it was announced that the rebellion had actually broken out, and the leader, Chang Yuanqi, had invaded the district with a huge army. Tzu Qing and the 3 heroes went out to oppose them with the 500 men. Yuan Ter joyfully undertook to lead the van and marched to the foot of the tossing hills, where they saw the rebels. The rebels wore their hair flying about their shoulders, and their foreheads were bound with yellow turbans. When the 2 armies had been drawn up opposite each other, Yuan Ter with his 2 brothers, one on each side, rode to the front and, flourishing his whip, began to hurl reproaches at the rebels and called upon them to surrender. Their leader, full of rage, sent out one Tang Mu to begin the battle. At once rode forward Chang Fei, his long spear poised to strike. One thrust and Tang rolled off his horse, pierced through the heart. At this the leader himself whipped up his steed and rode forth with sword raised ready to slay Chang. But Guan Yu swung up his ponderous weapon and rode at him. At the sight, fear seized upon Chang, and ere he could recover himself the great sword fell, cutting him in halves. Two heroes new to war's alarms ride boldly forth to try their arms. Their doughty deeds 3 kingdoms tell, and poets sing how these befell. Their leader fallen, the rebels threw away their weapons and fled. The official soldiers dashed in among them. Many thousands surrendered and the victory was complete. Thus this part of the rebellion was broken up. On their return, the prefect met them and distributed rewards. But before long, letters came from the prefecture of Qingqiu saying that the rebels were laying siege to the chief city, and it was near falling. Help was needed quickly. "I will go," said Yuan-Ter as soon as he heard the news, and he set out at once with his own men, reinforced by a large body under Tzu Qing. The rebels, seeing help coming at once, attacked most fiercely. The relieving force, being comparatively small, could not prevail and retired some 30 li, where they made a camp. "They are many and we but few," said Yuan-Ter to his brothers. "We can only beat them by superior strategy." So they prepared an ambush. The 2 younger brothers, each with a goodly party, went behind the hills right and left and there hid. When the gongs beat, they were to move out to support the main army. These preparations made, the drums rolled for the advance. The rebels also came forward. Then Yuan-Ter suddenly retired. Thinking this was their chance, the rebels pressed forward and were led over the hills. Then suddenly the gongs sounded for the ambush to discover itself, and the rebels were attacked on 3 sides. They lost heavily and fled to the provincial city. But the prefect led out the men he had to assist in the battle, and the rebels were entirely defeated and many slain. Qingqiu was no longer in danger. Though fierce as tigers soldiers be, battles are won by strategy. A hero comes, he gains renown, already destined for a crown. After the celebrations in honor of victory were over, Tzu Qing proposed to return home, but Yuan-Ter preferred to go to the aid of his old master Lu Qi, then struggling with a horde of rebels led by Chang Shio. So they separated, and the 3 brothers with their troop made their way of Quangsung. They found the prefect in camp, were admitted to his presence, and declared the reason of their coming. The prefect received them with great joy, and they remained with him while he made his plans. At that time the rebels there were 3 to 1, and the 2 armies were facing each other. Neither had had any success. The prefect said to Liu Pei, "I am surrounding these rebels here, but the other 2 brothers Chang Liang and Chang Pao are strongly entrenched opposite Huangfu Sung and Chu Qin at Yingchuan. I will give you 1,000 more men, and with these you can go to find out what is happening, and we can then settle the moment to attack." So Yuan-Ter set off and marched as quickly as possible. At that time the imperial troops were attacking with success, and the rebels had retired upon Changsha. They had encamped among the thick grass, and seeing this, Huangfu decided to attack them by fire. So he bade every man cut a bundle of dry grass and laid an ambush. That night the wind blew a gale, and at the second watch they started a blaze. At the same time the rebels were attacked. Their camp was set on fire and the flames rose to the very heavens. The rebels were thrown into great confusion. There was no time to saddle horses or don armor. They fled in all directions. The battle continued till dawn. Chang Liang and Chang Pao, with a few flying soldiers, found, as they thought, a way of escape. But suddenly a troop of soldiers with crimson banners appeared to oppose them. Their leader was a man of medium stature with small eyes and a long beard. He was one Tsao, also known as Tsao Merngter, a Paquo man, holding the rank of Kai Tuyu. His father was Tsao Sung, who had been born to the Xiaohu family, but he had been brought up by the eunuch Tsao Yang and had taken his family name. This Tsao was Sung's son, and as a lad, bore the name of a man. As a young man, Tsao had been fond of hunting and delighted in songs and dancing. He was resourceful and full of guile. An uncle, seeing the young fellow so unsteady, used to get angry with him and told his father Tsao sung of his misdeeds. His father remonstrated with him, but the youth was equal to the occasion. One day, seeing his uncle coming, he fell to the ground in a pretended fit. The uncle, alarmed, ran to tell his father, who came, and there was the youth in most perfect health. "But your uncle said you were in a fit. Are you better?" "I have never suffered from fits or any such illness," said Tsao, "but I have lost my uncle's affection, and he has deceived you." Thereafter, whatever the uncle might say of his faults, his father paid no heed. So the young man grew up licentious and uncontrolled. A certain man of the time said to Tsao, "Rebellion is at hand, and only a man of the greatest ability can succeed in restoring tranquility. That man is yourself." And Ho Young of Nanyang said of him, "The dynasty of Han is about to fall. He who can restore peace is this man, and only he." Tsao went to inquire his future of a wise man of Junin. "What manner of man am I?" asked Tsao. The seer made no reply, and again he put the question. Then he replied, "You are able enough to rule the world, but wicked enough to disturb it." Tsao greatly rejoiced to hear this. He graduated at 20 and began his career in a district near Luoyang. In the 4 gates of the city, he ruled. He hung up clubs of various sorts, and any breach of the law met with its punishment, whatever the rank of the offender. Now an uncle of a eunuch was found one night in the streets with a sword and was arrested. In due course he was beaten. Thereafter no one dared to offend, and Tsao's name became terrible. Soon he became a magistrate. At the outbreak of rebellion, he held the rank of Kai Tu and was given command of 5,000 horse and foot to help fight at Yingchuan. He just happened to fall in with the newly defeated rebels, whom he cut to pieces. Thousands were slain, and endless banners and drums and horses were captured, and not a little money. However, the 2 leaders got away, and after an interview with Huangfu Sung, Tsao went in pursuit of them. We return now to Yuan-Ter. He and his brothers were hastening toward the point of danger when they heard the din of battle and saw flames rising high toward the sky. However, they arrived too late for the fighting. They saw Huangfu and Chu, to whom they told the intentions of Lu Qi. "The rebel power is quite broken here," said the chiefs, "but they will surely make for Kwangsung to join Chang Shio. You can do nothing better than hasten back." The 3 brothers retraced their steps. Halfway along the road, they met a party of soldiers escorting a prisoner in a cage cart. When they drew near, the prisoner was no other than the man they were going to help. Hastily dismounting, Liu Pei asked what had happened. Lu Qi explained, "I had surrounded the rebels and was on the point of smashing them, when Chang Shio employed some of his supernatural powers and prevented my victory. The court sent down a eunuch to inquire into my failure, and that official demanded a bribe. I told him how hard-pressed we were, and asked him where, in the circumstances, I could find a gift for him. He went away in wrath and reported that I was hiding behind my ramparts and would not give battle, and I disheartened my men. So I was superseded by one Tung Cho, and I have to go to the capital to answer the charge." This story put Chang Fei into a rage. He was for slaying the escort and setting free the prisoner, but Yuan-Ter checked him. "The government will take the proper course," said he. "You must not act hastily." And they went their ways. It was useless to continue on that road, so Kuan Yu proposed to go back, and they retook the road. 2 days later they heard the thunder of battle behind some hills. Hastening to the top, they beheld the government soldiers suffering great loss, and they saw the countryside was full of yellow turbans. On their banners were the words, "Celestial Duke, writ large. "We will attack this Chang Shio," said Yuan Ter, and they galloped out to join in the battle. Chang Shio had worsted Tung Cho and was following up his advantage. He was in hot pursuit when the three brothers dashed into his army, threw his ranks into confusion, and drove him back. Then they returned with the rescued general to his camp. "What officers have you?" asked Tung Cho when he had leisure to speak to the brothers. "None," was the reply, and Tung treated them with disrespect. Yuan Ter retired calmly, but Chang Fei was furious. "We have just rescued this menial in a bloody fight," cried he, "and now he is rude to us. Nothing but his death can slake my anger." He would have dashed into the tent and slain the insulter had not his elder brothers held him back. As it was in olden times, so it is today, the simple white may merit well, officialdom holds sway. Chang Fei, the blunt and hasty, where can you find his peer? But slaying the ungrateful would mean many deaths a year. Tung Cho's fate will be unrolled in later chapters.